So I was thinking this one would be kind of fun.
All right.
Because it's a story that we all know.
Oh.
But I never hear it this way. It's not a story that is about an organization, but there are organizational lessons in it. And so you need to think through the organizational lessons.
All right.
Okay. So it's David and Goliath.
All right.
I'm not a religious scholar. So it's always the underdog story, right? Here are the things that nobody seems to really talk about with David and Goliath. So first of all, David, who is a shepherd,
right?
He was there only to visit his brother who was part of the army. And like a shepherd is like a low-end job, like at that time period, right? Like very low status, very dangerous. He's sleeping outdoors. There are wild animals around. And then there are thieves. And so a shepherd has to have a weapon that's very transportable, and they better be good at it.
Right.
And so he had a slingshot.
Right.
A slingshot is actually a lethal weapon in the right hands.
Like Sparky, our friend.
Yeah, I know. He's trying to do this. Okay, so that's David. And David comes in, and he's just seeing his brother, and the Israelites are like being challenged by Goliath, who's a Philistine. And, you know, Goliath is like goading them because he knows he's a giant. And so he's smack talking. And the shepherd is like, everybody's afraid to go in because the guy is huge. And the shepherd's like, I'll go in. And they try to give him like a sword, which David doesn't know how to use. And they try to give him shields shields. And he's like, well, that's just going to weigh me down. And I fight with a slingshot and I need to be agile. And so he refused all that. And he goes in with just a slingshot. We know that story. Goliath, for his part, probably had a pituitary gland problem.
Oh, that's the Malcolm Gladwell's theory.
Well,
that he's,
yeah, you can't be that large.
Slow
most people.
Right, Goliath was big, but he was slow on the uptake.
Right, because when you have a pituitary problem that kicks out the growth hormone, you grow too fast, you are slower, you're awkward, you have vision problems.
Right.
And so Goliath is very scary, but he's got a handler. And so, you know, David is looking at him and he's like, I'm pretty agile.
Right.
I'm running with sheep and I got a slingshot. And so then David, of course, takes a slingshot and he winds up beating him and everybody is floored because you always think that the bigger person would win. What's the organizational lesson in that?
Well, it's kind of the Clayton Christensen's innovator's dilemma, right? You know, you and I, we talked about this a couple days ago. If you get big, it's easy for somebody smaller and agile to see something that you don't want to see or you're too big to see and steal away the market from you. We also talked about it in terms of the insight from Richard Rummelt, the guy who wrote the book, The Crux and Good Strategy, Bad Strategy, that you often don't want to look at established companies to model their strategy because as companies get successful, they're able to cross-subsidize losers. And so your strength lets you fund weak things. And maybe some of those pay off, maybe they don't. But to me, the organizational lesson, and it goes back to something we've commented on before in this podcast, one of the hardest things that you and I do is convince people who've had some success that may be running out, or that they could have been more successful, or that there's actually a threat that they might not be able to beat back if they don't move quickly. Because those people who've been there from nothing to something remember the journey. They know they had victories. They know they've overcome things before.
Yeah, the assumptions that worked then might not be working in the future.
Right. And so in theory, Goliath has had a number of these battles and won them all. And so why would this battle be different?
Right. what I see there I don't think that you're wrong on what you've said, but what I see there is the big guy always, like, because everybody circles around playing the big guy's playbook, they don't question the playbook. And the playbook, because I mean, there's Goliath and he's sitting there and he is taunting them. And he's basically got sword play. They're all thinking they got to be in these shields,
Sure,
and because he is big, he actually has an advantage because it's swords. But he's setting the rules, and because he's the big guy, everybody thinks that they need to play by his rules.
Yeah.
And David was the marginal player, the company that's in the margins, that's serving a niche
Yep.
that hasn't been, served by the big guy.
Yeah.
And he's found a way to do that. And he basically comes in and changes the rules. And the big guy doesn't even see it coming.
Yeah.
I see David, and David, while serving that niche, figured out his core competency. And for strategy,
Yeah.
you need to know your core competency. David figured things out. He'd figured out he was
quick on my feet.
It was in a dangerous job, and he'd been successful at doing it. And he'd figured out that he was quick on his feet and good with a slingshot. He had to be in order to survive. And so instead of switching over and doing what everybody else was doing, he's like, no. This is my core competency.
Right.
This is how I'm going into battle.
Yeah, it's good insight. Yeah, it's very hard to, when you've had success, not think that will continue to serve you well.
Well, I think also because we have a tendency to always frame it as underdog, because Americans love
Sure.
an underdog story. David never saw himself as an underdog.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a good way of looking at it.